anomaly, right? They're the only sports franchise in the league, essentially, that has mostly or a lot, majority, made up of regular sports fans. All right. In other words, the ideologies, the ideals, the principles of the fans of their team is different than the fans of another team in another city somewhere. I talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm not sure the Indiana Fever understand this. Okay? Fans are
The Indiana Fever are facing a growing wave of criticism from their own supporters, and a recent social media misstep has pushed that frustration to a new level, one significant enough to draw a public response from Caitlin Clark herself. The incident that set things off involved an AI-generated promotional image posted to the team's official social media account. The image featured a hand that was visibly artificial, with the mechanical interior exposed, placed on Clark in a way that was immediately recognizable as computer-generated. The low quality of the image did not go unnoticed. Clark called out the franchise publicly over it, and the post quickly became a focal point for supporters who have been building frustration with the organization for months.
in this. Okay? Fans are I'm gonna use a phrase. Piss hot mad right now. They are piss hot mad. They are furious for all kinds of reasons at this point. And a lot of fans are like, the Indiana Fever is just going to keep bobbling this thing and stumbling and bumbling like, well, you got Stephanie White and Amber Cox and Kelly Crosswell. They're all going to.
The AI-generated graphic accumulated close to 900,000 views, with the bulk of the attention coming from fans expressing embarrassment or anger rather than support. Comments pointed to the irony of a franchise that has generated hundreds of millions in increased valuation, estimated at $90 million when Clark arrived in 2024, climbing to $560 million by 2026, relying on rudimentary AI tools for its marketing, while the star player responsible for that growth calls the output out publicly. The team's promotional copy accompanying recent posts has also drawn skepticism. Language describing fans as a force rather than a backdrop, and the franchise as a team that refuses to be ordinary, has landed poorly given the context of recent weeks. Empty seats were visible throughout multiple camera angles during the previous home game, with tickets dropping to $12 and still failing to fill the arena.
Amber Cox and Kelly Crosswell, they're all going to, the Three Stooges. Right? Oh my God, Rhodes, you're not supposed to say that. You're only supposed to cover the league a certain way. Well, I can tell you right now, if this leadership front office is only listening to the ESPNs of the world, boy, you're in for a lot of trouble. Because there's only a few people in existence that actually covers this.
Fans noted the disconnect between the celebratory tone of the organization's messaging and the reality visible on screen during broadcasts. The broader concern among the fanbase is that the Fever's front office does not fully grasp the nature of the audience it is dealing with. The Indiana fanbase that rallied around the team following Clark's arrival is not a traditional WNBA audience. It is largely composed of mainstream sports consumers who bring expectations shaped by following franchises like the Cowboys, Eagles, or Yankees, organizations accustomed to scrutiny and accountability at the highest level. When those fans raise concerns about roster construction, marketing quality, or organizational direction, dismissing that feedback as negativity carries real risk.
It actually covers this league in a manner that is willing to treat the Fever like they would the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Yankees or whatever. That's what you've got right now. But if you mess it up, and it seems starting to seem like you're going to mess it up. I mean, this came out right here. How much the value of the franchise has increased. Caitlin Clark.
Several comments directed at the team's social media posts reflected exactly that frustration, with longtime supporters expressing that the front office comes across as dismissive and out of touch. The roster situation has added to the unease. Multiple players are dealing with injuries, and the depth issues that showed up in the preseason remain unresolved. The coaching staff's approach has been questioned as well, with critics arguing that Clark's most effective playing style, the kind of open, fast-paced game she ran at Iowa is not being fully utilized. The concern is not abstract.
Franchise has increased. Caitlin Clark got there, by the way, in 2024. Right? 90 million, 370 million, 560 million in 2026. Indiana's building a state-of-the-art practice facility separate from the Pacers. It'll be finished in 2027. I mean, right here, you can see this comment. Just in time for Caitlin to leave. Otherwise, she's going to have a very forgettable career. A lot of people are concerned right now.
Clark's value to the franchise is singular, and a significant portion of the fanbase follows her specifically rather than the Fever as an institution. If that relationship with the player deteriorates, the organizational consequences would extend well beyond one-loss records. The franchise is also investing heavily in infrastructure, with a new practice facility set to open in 2027. But capital expenditure on facilities means little if the window with the player driving the team's commercial value is mismanaged. The comparison being made by critics is straightforward, similar to placing a generational talent in an environment that fails to support them properly, only to watch the opportunity dissolve through poor decision-making.
A lot of people are concerned right now. A lot of people are concerned right now. You better get a handle, get a sense on what it is the fans want, or this thing's going to get away from you. And yeah, you're going to be like, oh crap, we just spent all this money, we just did all this stuff, and our mega star, Michael Jordan, I mean, can you imagine Michael Jordan in the prime of his career?
Whether the front office course corrects in response to the current wave of criticism or continues down the same path will likely define the trajectory of the franchise for years beyond this season. The Indiana Fever wrapped up their preseason schedule with a comfortable victory over the Nigerian national team, a result that surprised no one. The outcome was never seriously in doubt, and the real takeaways from the night come from individual performances rather than anything the scoreline reveals about the team's competitive standing. The most significant observation to come out of the game has nothing to do with Caitlin Clark.
I mean, can you imagine Michael Jordan in the prime of his career wearing a Celtics jersey? And not a Bulls jersey? I want you to, Larry Bird, wearing a Bulls jersey and not a Celtics jersey. Well, or by all means, keep setting back going, oh, but the fans that are complaining, they're toxic. Well, if you believe that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. If that's the route you're going.
The single most important player on this Indiana Fever roster is Aaliyah Boston, not the best scorer that belongs to Kelsey Mitchell, not the highest profile name that is Clark. But the player whose presence or absence most directly determines this team's ceiling is Boston.
If that's the route you're going to go, you're going to be in a lot of. Then you think all regular sports fans are just toxic. Because no, we don't care about your political ideologies or this and that and the other. We don't want to hear about it. And we don't want to see cheap moves like AI that is used to the point that your star calls you out in freaking public. I mean, are you kidding me?
If the Fever make a deep run this season, it will not be because of sharp organizational decision-making or front office cleverness. It will be because the franchise landed back-to-back top overall picks in consecutive years that happened to matter enormously, a fortunate outcome that resembles what the Las Vegas Aces stumbled into before their run of top and so's success. Organizations built on drafted fortune rather than structural competence tend to look brilliant for a window and then reveal their limitations. The Fever are not immune to that pattern.
You know, the job does not choose itself. So, the Indiana Fever, I thought Mo Billings hitting a 3 was impressive. I liked seeing that. I liked seeing her pull that. But I'm going to be real here. I feel like it's not a crazy statement to make. This is not a crazy statement to make. The most important player in the Indiana Fever by a absolute mile, and I mean it, and by an absolute mile, is Aaliyah Boston.
Boston's development over the past year has been striking. The face-up game, the perimeter threat, the pick-and-roll operation with Clark as screener, these are not features that were visible before Clark's arrival forced an adjustment. The comparison to Steph Curry under Steve Kerr is instructive. Same player, different system, entirely different outcome. Boston was a back-to-basket passer before.
And by an absolute mile is Aaliyah Boston. Like, it's not even close. Like, I think their best player is Caitlin Clark, their best scorer is Kelsey Mitchell. The best player on the Indiana Fever by a country mile. So the most important player on this team is Aaliyah Boston. If this team is going to go to the finals, it's not because of organizational competency. It is because they looked into getting back-to-back number one overall picks in years where it really mattered. It's like the Aces. Like, the Las Vegas Aces are not a good organization.
That version of her has largely disappeared, replaced by something considerably more dangerous. Clark herself had another efficient outing, 12 points on 4 field goal attempts, 4 free throw attempts converted, 4 assists against a single turnover, and a plus 32 inches her limited time. The efficiency is hard to argue with regardless of the competition level. The Mo Billings ankle situation is the one genuine concern from the night.
Vegas Aces are not a good organization. What they did was they got lucky enough to draft back-to-back number one overall picks, and then they pumped in money early. And you can see now with the way their scouting and everything is, the Aces are not a well-run organization. They're not a well-run organization. The problem is with the Aces is that genuinely they're doing well because they employ AJ Wilson. And Indiana Fever are always going to be a good team. Not because of not because of their ChatGPT, not because of their non-existent.
She landed on an opponent's foot and did not return after the first half. If that injury carries into the regular season, the Fever's frontcourt depth takes an immediate hit. Damaris Dantas as the primary fallback option is not a reassuring thought. Her limitations at this level are well established at this point. She does not screen, does not roll effectively, does not defend, and struggles to impact the game through movement or physicality.
Not because of their non-existent scouting, not because they believe that Damiris Dantas is a better option than Emma fucking Chekova, who would, no offense, would start for the Fever. And Mo Billings is hurt. They're fucked. Like, if Mo Billings is hurt, they're kind of fucked because, I'm sorry, Dantas against competent competition sucks. It's not even, Dantas just needs to play against international teams. Raven Johnson, again, what we're not going to do here is...
The one area where she could justify her roster spot is three-point shooting, and her preseason numbers sit at 25% on 12 attempts. The threshold she needs to reach to be even a neutral presence on the floor is somewhere around 40%. She is not there. If Billings misses significant time, a trade becomes a reasonable conversation.
Johnson, again, what we're not going to do here is say one bad word about Raven Johnson. Like, I will. As someone who loves his role players, you know on this channel, I believe Phoebus is a top 15 player in the league. As someone who loves their role players, Raven Johnson, I will fight. Like, I will go to war to defend Raven Johnson as long as she's a member of this Fever team. Aaliyah Boston, fucking super player, absolutely super. Kelsey Mitchell just scores, and Sophie Cunningham, I'm glad she came.
Kika Timmons was the most pleasant surprise of the evening, coming in with low expectations after watching her struggle at the European club level. Her energy and effort stood out noticeably against that backdrop. There are still awareness issues, but the motor is present in a way that Dantas simply cannot match. The gap between the two in terms of competitive drive was apparent.
And Sophie Cunningham, I'm glad she came. I really liked the 3 she shot in transition. I thought Caitlin looked really good again. 12 points on 4 shots. I think is impressive. It is impressive. Like, again, got to the line 4 times, hit her free throws, 4 assists to 1 turnover, plus 32. Like, one player I'm actually really impressed with KK Timpson. This is from somebody who was extremely low on KK. I was extremely low on KK Timpson coming into this season because I thought KK Timpson was horrendous in Prague.
Raven Johnson continues to justify her selection. As a role player, she brings consistent defensive activity, rebounds above her usage, and competes every possession. The questions about her fit or value that circulated earlier in the preseason have quieted considerably after watching her perform. Sophie Cunningham's transition 3 was a positive contribution.
Coming into this season, because I thought KK Timpson was horrendous in Prague. And it's the reason why I was so angry at the Fever didn't get Chekova. I'm somebody who watched KK Timpson play for Prague. I watched one game in the Czech League, and I literally said, I'm like, this is barely basketball. I don't care how she does in Czech League. I watched every single EuroLeague game she played, and I even watched the ones where she got 0 minutes. She looked completely lost, and KK, the level between gap between KK and Dantas is scary. Dantas is 100.
Ty Harris was rusty, but it was her first game back, and reading too much into that performance would be premature. Of the players competing for the final developmental spots, Megan Connolly, Kiana Trahan, and Jessica Timmons, none made a compelling case. Connolly is the strongest of the three, bringing defensive energy that causes problems for opponents, though the offensive limitations are real, and Raven Johnson's presence closes the door on what would otherwise be her most viable path to minutes. Timmons has shooting ability that could develop over time, but her tendency to take an excessive number of dribbles before committing to any action makes her difficult to use in a professional setting right now.
Is 100 times worse than KK. KK, there's energy there. Yes, I understand when it comes to KK Timpson, there is issues with her awareness. Like, awareness doesn't matter when you're Dantas, when you play with the motor of the first plane that the Wright brothers tried to make, in comparison to you needing to have a fucking jet engine to play on this team. Dantas
Trahan did not do enough to separate herself. The argument that better developmental options, Jordan Canada, Marta Suarez, are available externally is a reasonable one. The Fever's power forward position has been a problem area for long enough that it is starting to feel structural. Until that gets resolved through either a healthy Billings or an external move, it remains the one spot on the roster with the most potential to limit everything else around it.